Okay, I still got one of the little cowlicks here. Okay, I'm getting my hair cut today, all right? In fact, I'm gonna get my haircut done right after I get this video up. While you are watching this video right now, if you watched it when it first went live, I am probably getting my haircut at this very moment. So I just want you to think about that. Tekking getting his haircut. Ooh, okay. This will be One Piece, chapter 1064, titled Egghead's Research Stratum. Some of those words made sense and some of them did not. All right, let's get into it. And let's get into it with the continuation of the cover series, the Germa Double Six's Emotionless Excursion. And this is a very, very special cover page, ladies and gentlemen, because I think, I don't know, there's been a lot of cover page, series, like a special limited edition serialized, stories that Oda does in this manga, okay? There's been a lot ever since all the way back at East Blue with Buggy's, crazy adventure when he got separated from his body, all the way up to the Germas right now. So there might be another instance where they link up like this, but I'll just say it right here. The events of the cover page directly tie into the events in this chapter. Remember that the cover page series takes place like prior to Wano or concurrently with Wano, because like the whole point is the Germa were, escaping from Totland while Big Mom was off in Wano. All right, so this whole event at least takes place at least during the Wano arc, okay? And for that reason, we see Van Augur, the captain of the third ship of Blackbeard's fleet, one of the 10 Titanic captains, and we see the ex-Admiral Kuzan, formerly Admiral Aokiji, standing there on the ship with Pudding. It was mentioned last time by Brule that Pudding had been captured by some enemy forces. We saw Cracker there on the ground frozen. All of Chocolate Town on Cacao Island had been frozen as well, and now we see the culprits behind it. Most people assume that Aokiji was involved, and he is, and since Aokiji was involved, it was already mentioned that he had dealings with the Blackbeard crew, so it was probably another member of the Blackbeard pirates that arrived at Cacao Island with him, and it makes sense because it's Augur. However, I will also say that just because Augur now has the teleportation devil fruit, this teleportation fruit, the warp fruit, it changes everything, okay? It might even be more relevant than geography. Because Augur has now tamed the power of geography. He is truly the strongest One Piece character. So I still think the timelines, like this took place like earlier, but in theory, it could have been happening at the same time. Hell, this cover page could have happened like in between the last chapter and now. If Augur's teleportation is not limited by distance and he could just go wherever he wants, last chapter he could have been like, all right, Burgess, I'm gonna send you over to that island so you can fight Law. And Burgess is like, yeah! And then Augur's like, blip. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna, hop over really quick to Cacao Island and capture Pudding and I'll be right back. Blip! Blip! All right, we got her. Just like, it could have been something like that if he could truly teleport to that limit, okay? So, yes, Aokiji and Augur, they're the ones that arrived at Cacao Island all those cover series ago, and they froze the town and they captured Pudding because Pudding has the third eye. She's a member of the Third Eye tribe. She's a half Third Eye member because Big Mom is still technically a human, and her father would have been a true blood Third Eye tribe member. We still don't know much about that tribe in general, but the idea is that, as Big Mom stated, when she awakens her third eye, will be able to read poneglyphs. Now, I don't know if it was ever stated that she has yet. Maybe the events of the actual arc, of the Totland arc and everything, allowed her to awaken her third eye. I don't know. Maybe one of the requirements. This is an anime after all, so let's go with like the shoujo Sailor Moon kind of logic or some shit. Let's just go with like, you fell in love. Pudding fell in love with Sanji, so therefore she awakens to the true power of her third eye. That was the prerequisite or whatever. So it hasn't been stated, but even if she hasn't awakened to her third eye powers yet, she probably will eventually, or at least the potential is there, and Blackbeard needs somebody to decipher road poneglyphs. So it would make sense that they would go after Pudding, okay? So we'll actually cut back to Pudding in this chapter because she's in this chapter. We get to see her because she was captured by the Blackbeard pirates. Still have no idea what's up with Kuzan, although Kuzan does seem to have a really cool outfit I think the Blackbeard crew gave him. And so he is probably the 10th Titanic captain at this point. I can't really imagine. It's either Aokiji or it's the horse. It's stronger. I doubt it's stronger. So I'm assuming, yeah, he's just the 10th Titanic captain. But he might be a secret agent working for Sword in the background. So let's not forget that. Okay, so we continue right where we left off in the last chapter. We actually open up with a double-page spread. It's really cool. The angles of this page are a little bit different than Oda usually does. Blackbeard riding on top of Doc Q, riding on top of Stronger the horse that has the Pegasus mythical zone. So I feel bad for Doc Q because Doc Q is like holding on to Stronger because he's so sick. He never rides Stronger like the normal way, you know, like a normal person riding a horse. He's always like passed out on top of the horse. Like, it's okay, Stronger, we'll get there eventually. Just take your time, buddy. And then we have Blackbeard who's like riding on top of them, like standing on top of Doc Q. And Blackbeard, I mean, he's a pretty hefty guy. He's big boned, all right? He's got a bit of a gut, all right? I don't know how much Blackbeard weighs canonically, but it's probably a lot. And he's just like standing on top of Doc Q. And he's like, oh, Captain, please stop. And then, you know, Stronger can fly, but he's like really exerting himself. So I feel kind of bad for these two. Anyway, so Blackbeard is just charging right at Law, okay? And by the way, can we just step back for a moment and just realize what's happening right now? We have a full-on battle between Trafalgar D. Watcher Law and Marshall D. Teach. I'm sure there's plenty of you, you know, the fans that were like, man, I can't wait for that battle to happen. But I personally never foresaw this occurring. I never sat around thinking that, like, man, I can't wait until that inevitable Blackbeard versus Law battle happens. So it was never something I really expected from the story, but I'm loving this. I'm loving that Blackbeard is just more involved now in general, and it makes sense. Kaido and Big Mom are gone. They're out of the picture. In fact, from something that we, you know, hear Pudding say in this chapter, Big Mom might be really out of the picture, okay? That's right. Yeah, we have confirmation in this chapter, ladies and gentlemen. Big Mom got sucked into another dimension. She fell through the hole, and she ended up in a parallel world. Heaven help whatever anime world she got sucked into. Oh, mama! Yeah. Okay, and so, anyway, though, we have Blackbeard charging, and Law is getting ready, so he actually shouts over to members of his crew, alright? So that's like the first thing that happens, alright? So this is great. I just did a video this week on how the Heart Pirates were going to deal with this, and they handle it very calmly. Even though they are staring down one of the Yonko, they are staring down Blackbeard himself, they remain pretty calm, alright? And they listen to their captain's orders, okay? So we find out the name of one of the, you know the dude that has the mask, the creepy, like, serial killer mask that always pilots the Polar Tang. He's like the helmsman. His name is Hakugan, alright, which kind of sounds like Bakugan, so I'm just gonna call him Bakugan. Alright, so Law shouts over, he's like, Bakugan, I want you to, you know, rip it! I don't know, I've never played Bakugan when I was a kid. Was that the tagline? Rip it? I feel like it was something, spin it? I don't know. Anyway, so he's like, Hakugan, Bakugan, get over to the submarine, get over to the Polar Tang and protect it. Now, the Polar Tang was damaged in the last chapter. It wasn't completely destroyed, but it was damaged. It was like taking on water and some of the pipes were bursting and stuff, but not entirely impossible that you could fix it, maybe like a quick patch job and then get out of there. So Hakugan seems to be like the main engineer. Maybe he's the shipwright for the Heart Pirates, so he runs over. Then Law shouts over at Sachi and Penguin, his two like right-hand men, and they're just like, okay, Sachi, Penguin, I want you to, you know, dive into the sea and provide cover. And they're like, yeah, we're on it, Captain, we got this. So I'm loving this already, where the captain is just giving the orders, Law, and the crew is like, yeah, Captain, all right. It's like, because the idea is this is a serious battle. You need to shut up and listen to your captain in that sense, okay? You might be scared, you might be afraid, but you got to rely on your own abilities, because if you just sit around and cower in the corner, like, oh my god, it's Blackbeard's crew, Law, we don't have any devil fruits, we don't have any conquerors hockey, we're just dead. You know, if you do that, then you are gonna, there's no way out then, okay? So they're doing that really well. Law opens up our room, so he's just jumping straight to his awakening, which makes sense, because, like, the normal room and, like, shambles, like, that's not gonna work against Blackbeard, alright? In fact, one could argue, with Law's abilities and all the different awakening powers that we saw him, like, Shock Willy and Puncture Willy and everything like that, during, Wano, you could argue Law might have some, like, one-hit KO abilities. So, I mean, he'd be stupid to not start off the battle, and also, when he was fighting fighting against Big Mom, I mean, it was like a lot had drained him, you know? Like, he was fighting alongside Kid, and many people could argue, like, the reason they didn't immediately start fighting Big Mom with their awakenings, or why didn't they start fighting Kaido with their awakenings? If Kid and Law were both awakened, why didn't they just open up those techniques with Kaido? And one of the reasons is because, like, Law did not want to show his hand to his rival. So it's like, and also he just doesn't like Kid, and Kid doesn't like Law, you know what I mean? So the idea is, like, I'm not going to show Eustace Kid every single thing I got in my toolbox. I might have to fight this guy someday, okay? And when it got to the fight with Big Mom, they were essentially just pushed up against a wall, and it's like, okay, unless we use our awakenings, we're gonna die. We have to do this. And even then, they still didn't do everything they could do with it at first, until they were really pushed up against a wall by Big Mom, and that sounded a little wrong, but they eventually managed to win the day, okay? But now, you know, Eustace is not around. It's just Law and his crew versus the Blackbeard pirates, so Law is just like, okay, our room, let's start with this, okay? Now, a little bit of thing here. He opens up our room, and then he uses amputate. Okay, now amputate, it was not named when it was originally used, but amputate is the standard technique that Law always uses with room. Okay, so, you know, Law has usually Kikoku with him, right? So he'll open up, you know, like, room, and then, by the way, I love the room sound effect in the anime. It's like, it's like one of my favorite sound effects in anime. Anyway, so he'll use amputate and, like, you know, cut off somebody's, like torso, but it's not, like, they're not really dead, it's just, like, they're floating there, and then he'll, like, shambles, and then, like, he'll send them flying around. So that technique where he just, like, you know, breaks people apart like Legos, that's called amputate, okay? And our room, though, is a technique that is an awakening move, all right? So he just opens up our room, and then he uses amputate, and Stronger is cut in half. So, like, Stronger being a horse, his legs, like, and then his top half is there. And so the wings are, well, the wings are still technically connected to the part of his body where Doc Q and Blackbeard are riding on, but the whole idea of Stronger being cut in half sort of, like, unbalances everything, and Blackbeard's kind of, like, falling off the horse, all right? Now, I want to say that, like, what exactly is, I think I know what K-room is. K-room is when he makes, like, a small room and adds the property of room to his sword. So he can, like, extend his sword and, like, mold it, and it's like, it's basically like whenever he uses room, he can kind of move things around whenever he wants. When he uses K-room, he can add the properties of room to a single object. And so that's why his sword can grow longer, and he could probably change it into a bunch of different shapes or mold it however he sees fit, okay? That's K-room. Our room seems to have the effect, because we saw it once, and it's when he opened up our room and made everything inside of it silent, and then that's when he threw Big Mom off the side of Onigashima, and she, you know, tried to call for Hera and Prometheus to save her, and they couldn't hear her, and then she fell in the hole, and then she exploded, and even the explosion, this giant, like, nuke going off, was also completely silent. Another property of our room is that it shrinks or expands depending on the property that Law gives it. So, like, when he added the R room to Big Mom and she fell, it followed her down, and when she exploded, it literally increased in size to cover the entire explosion. So I would say it's just a better version of room that you can add extra properties to it. Although I don't think Law added some extra properties here, because all he did was use amputate. He just used the same ability he always uses. It's not like he made our room silent in this instance. That's not the case. However, I think it's just, you know, you want to open up with that, because if Blackbeard or Doc Q were to do something to try to, you can't leave the R room. That's the thing. If you have regular room, I guess in theory, somebody could just, like, you know, if here's the perimeter of Law's room, you could just, like, whoop, and you could just, like, walk out of it. But with our room, it's kind of like tethered to you. It's like connected, like you're the center of the point of effect, right? So like wherever you move, it travels with you, okay? I guess that's the best way for me to really describe it. So yeah, using our room with his awakening and then amputate, which separates Stronger. Doc Q even has a moment where he's like, oh, Stronger, are you dead? I hope you're not, okay. I don't think Stronger's dead, by the way. I don't think it's that powerful. It's just that the R room is now centered on Blackbeard, so then Law can proceed to use other techniques against him without worrying about Blackbeard leaving the room. You know, I guess that's the best way for me to describe it there. And so Blackbeard realizes, he's like, wait, I didn't hear about this ability. It must be an awakening, which is also a weird thing to say because this is an ability that Law has done before. Oh, wait. Maybe another property of our room, because whenever he has to use, well, no, because I was going to say maybe he can open up the R room somewhere else. Like with the regular room, he has to like have it in his hand and then it expands from where Law is. Maybe with our room, he can like point at an area and then the room expands from where the enemy is. But we see him use our room. We see him have the bubble in his hand when he does that, okay? So that's like, I guess the main question here is Blackbeard was like, no one told me your powers could do this. Ha 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 ha! That must be an awakening! And it's like, yeah, he's right, it is an awakening, but like, the ability amputate is the same ability that Law always uses, unless Stronger is really dead. Like, unless Law really did just kill Stronger right there, I guess it would be an awakened ability. But other than that, I don't really see any other major differences, you know, but I guess we'll find out more as we go. So Blackbeard's falling off his high horse, and he's about to hit the ground, and, you know, all the enemies are down there, and Law's waiting for him, you know, just like, okay, fall down, come on. And so, you know, Blackbeard is just like, oh, I love the translation with this one. You bilge-sucking rat! You know, just like, okay, that, I mean, the idea that, like, Blackbeard would talk in, like, those old-school pirate terms, like, shiver me timbers, you bilge rat! Say ha-ha! Like, it kind of works for him, like, it really does. So he uses the power of the Gura Gura no Mi. Now, this is also something relevant. Pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. This is One Piece history for you right here. Blackbeard has utilized the Gura Gura no Mi that he stole from Whitebeard before. In fact, one of the first things he did after stealing the fruit, he used one of the, you know, he punched the air around Marineford and it cracked, okay? However, he wasn't really, you know, skilled at it quite yet, but that was 2 years ago and he's trained with it. Now, we've seen him, like, we've seen the effects of him using the Gura Gura no Mi before. Like, when Moria arrived on the island, Blackbeard was, like, shouting at him, and it's like his voice had like the shockwaves to it. And then a couple chapters ago when Blackbeard arrived at Amazon Lily, we also heard from the Marines, like, there's sea quakes everywhere, okay? So that's like the effects of Blackbeard using the ability, but I think this is like the first time that Blackbeard has actively like, here is the Gura Gura no Mi, here's an attack name that I came up with and I'm using it right now, okay? For us to see. And he uses Quake Crash, which is basically just him opening up like a quake bubble and then boom, punching the air, and it like sends the shockwaves everywhere. So it prevents him from like slamming into the ground, but it also like knocks all of the heart pirates because he literally creates a massive shockwave that like rattles all of their bones, and like the heart pirates are like falling to the ground like, whoa, that's a shockwave right there, okay? Now Whitebeard did name his techniques, although I don't remember Whitebeard shouting out his attack names during Marineford. He does have names for his Gura Gura, but I think it was all given in like data books after the fact. So his attack names were like, you know, just named after like Sea Quake and like Great Tremor and everything like that. There was the one technique he used on that giant, and the Ronsei was the name of the giant, where he used the helmet splitter technique, where he grabbed Ronsei's helmet and like the quake bubble on his face and like shattered his helmet into a million pieces. So I don't remember him doing that. I don't remember like Whitebeard grabbing Ronsei and being like, helmet splitter, Gura Gura Gura, boom! I don't remember him shouting that. I think that was all given later. So Whitebeard did have names for his fruit, and then Blackbeard probably, even though they're like the similar techniques, the same fruit, he gave them different techniques names. So we have Quake Crash right here, which I think is a pretty cool name. So a lot of the heart pirates get dropped to their knees, and then we have Doc Q, who's still like falling through the sky, and he's like, Stronger, it's okay, buddy. I'll check you up later, okay? And then he uses his apple bombs, because Doc Q always carries around a basket of apples, which are actually bombs. And I love how even though he has a devil fruit now, and his horse also has a devil fruit, he's still relying on the apple bombs as his main form of attack. And so he just like chucks the basket, and the apple bombs start just falling on the battlefield, you know, like an air raid. And so they all start running away. The heart pirates like, we gotta get out of here. But it's okay, because then we cut underwater. I'm just gonna describe this to you, and I'm just gonna just go with it. It's One Piece. Okay, so we have Sachi, right? Sachi, you know, part of the Sachi penguin duo. Sachi is underwater, okay? Now, he doesn't have a devil fruit, so he can swim perfectly fine. He dives underwater. He sucks up a bunch of seawater. Like, he literally dives underwater and just, you know, just slurps up a bunch of seawater, to the point where his entire body is like a ball. So remember like Luffy, when Luffy became Mizu Luffy or Water Luffy when he fought against Crocodile at Alabasta? Picture that, okay? So Sachi just absorbs a bunch of water, and then he pops out of the ocean, and then he spits the water like a cannon, and the water pressure, like this water jet, hits the apples, and they explode in the air. So they, he saves his crew. So like the apples don't actually hit the ground, they blow up in the sky, and so they don't get bombarded with the apples. Okay, how can he do that if he doesn't have a devil fruit? And Sachi's only explanation for this, when he pops out of the water and just does that, his only explanation is, it's a big mistake to underestimate us. We grew up in the cold, harsh waters of the North Blue. We know all about undersea, underwater combat. You don't have a chance against us in that situation. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, and then we see the Polar Tang back up and running, so maybe they did some really quick repairs in there, and then they got the Polar Tang running, and now we also see, I guess, Penguin and Sachi both heading, like they're swimming underwater super fast, and they're heading for I guess it is the Saber of Xebec. I guess this is Blackbeard's flagship. I mean, he's there. Why else would he show up if he didn't bring his flagship with him? So this might actually be the Saber of Xebec. So they're swimming underwater towards the Saber of Xebec to, like, bring it down. Okay, so, okay, are Sachi and Penguin, are they fishmen? Like, to be fair, that might actually be the case. Because we don't get to see, like, they always wear those really heavy boiler suits, you know what I mean? Sachi and Penguin are always wearing hats. They always have the boiler suits and everything on like that, right? So I don't know, man, like, maybe, but, like, there was a Law light novel, which that doesn't mean that, like, everything that happens in the Law light novel is canon, but it was also in the One Piece magazine. I don't know if, like, Oda, like, breezed through it or whatever, and it wasn't mentioned that they were fishmen or anything like that, so I guess they could be, but I doubt it. I think this is just like one of those weird things in the One Piece world that's just like, yes, Sachi and Penguin, without devil fruits, without really powerful hockey, they were able to resist Rayleigh's conquerors, don't forget that, but they don't have any other abilities other than using weapons, and so they specialized in undersea combat, which is actually really smart when we're going to get to a line later on from Law in this chapter. Pretty much all of the commanders on Blackbeard's ship have devil fruit powers now, and later on Law says, like, oh, how's it feel lugging around a bunch of anchors with you? The idea that, like, having an entire crew filled with devil fruit users sounds really badass on the surface, but then you realize, like, if they fall in water, they're out of the fight, right? And so that actually makes sense that, like, the whole point of the Heart Pirates, at least some of the Heart Pirates, like Sachi and Penguin, working together to, like, sink a ship and drag devil fruit users into the water where they are helpless, okay? And they focus their entire, like, martial arts and everything like that on that one task. I still don't know how Sachi was just able to, like, that was seawater too. That was salt water that he just consumed. I'm pretty sure, don't test this, but I'm pretty sure that if you consume, let's be generous and say it was 20 gallons of salt water. It was probably more than that because Sachi was, like, really swollen up there. But let's say you just drink 20 gallons of salt water. I don't think that you're gonna turn into, like, a water cannon, that you're like, all right, I'm good to go. And just fire off the salt water. Please do not try that at home, okay? Yeah, anyway, so they're heading toward the Saber of Xebec. I guess they're going to attempt to, like, sink it. Then we have Beppo off to the side, and Beppo, I don't know if you guys knew this, he's a bear, much like another bear that I know, except Beppo is a polar bear, but whatever. Bears have really good sense of hearing, at least I think they do. I'm not a bear expert, but anyway, I should call Briggs right now. I should be like, hey, Briggs! Hey, Briggs! Do bears hear well? Oh, they do? Okay, great. All right, awesome. Anyway, so, yeah, he's there on the battlefield, and he's not really fighting. I mean, he is, but he's also, like, paying attention to, like, the area around him. So he's just like, oh, Captain, sniper at 3 o'clock. Jean Bart, help him. So, of course, when he says sniper, that's, of course, referring to Van Augur with the power of the warp fruit that can teleport around the whole damn battlefield. And also, he has a rifle called Senriku, which means 1,000 lands, which is a really cool name for a rifle, okay? I think it might actually be the only named firearm in the entire One Piece world. Ben Beckman's is probably named as well, same with Yasop, but we don't know their names. But yeah, Senriku for Augur. And so Beppo is just like, oh, there's a sniper! And then Jean Bart, like, literally just dives in front of Law and just like, yeah! And then boom, he just takes the sniper shot, like, head on. I'm assuming he used armament hockey. The whole scene, though, is kind of like, you have Law there using his ability, and he's, like, extending his sword out to attack Blackbeard, and so the sniper shot's coming from behind Law, like it's gonna hit him in the back of the head. And then Jean Bart just dives and just lands right in front of, or right behind Law, and he's boom! He just takes the shot, okay? So as I said, in the video I did a few days ago, Jean Bart is the tank, ladies and gentlemen. He's the tank of this party, he's the tank of the Heart Pirates, and he knows his role, okay? So he's just like, you know, gotta protect the captain, yeah! Boom! And he got shot by Van Augur's sniper rifle, and he seems to be like okay, and Augur even kind of like, he's like, that's some bodyguard right there. Like, Augur even kind of compliments him. Like, man, he was able to tank one of my shots. Like, I don't know what caliber that thing was, but, you know, you'd assume Augur at this point would at least be able to put, like, hockey into his bullets, if that's feasible. I mean, you can put hockey into arrows, but, see, that's the thing. You don't know. Like, if you have an arrow and you're actually physically touching the arrow, you add hockey to that. Like, that makes sense. But with a gun, it's a little different because it's like you're not actually physically touching the bullet. I guess because his is like a musket, I guess you could like take the round and then add hockey to it and then put it in the rifle and then fire it. I guess you could do that, but it's just a little different than like a bow, like the way the Kuja added hockey to their arrows. But I'm assuming if you have enough skill with anything, and Augur seems to be the more skillful, more tactical, intelligent member of Blackbeard's crew, pretty sure he could fire hockey-infused rounds, okay? Anyway, the fact that Bart was able to block that, I mean, pretty damn cool right there. So then that gives a lot time to continue his attack. Now he opens up K-Room, takes the sphere, adds it to his sword, just like he did at the fight with Big Mom, and then he extends it, stretchy extendo sword, like Gein's Shinso from Bleach or whatever, and then pierces Blackbeard with it. And I love Blackbeard's reaction to this. Blackbeard gets stabbed with the sword, like he's charging at Law, and then the sword just extends and just pierces him. That it doesn't hurt him yet, because that's like not how this works. And then Law, you know, he's just there, and then Blackbeard looks down and he's like, what the hell is this thing? And then Law's like, shock, Villy. It's like, what? Shock what? Ah! And then Blackbeard gets shocked with this thing, coughing up blood and gets knocked down. And at the same time, before he hits the water, Augur is there and he's like, oh, okay, that's what happens when you charge in, Captain. All right, warp, boop. And then he shows up next to Blackbeard, grabs him, and just like, okay, Commodore, Teach, are we going back to the ship or are we still fighting? And Blackbeard's like coughing up blood. He's like, no, screw this, Augur, we're still fighting. And he's like, okay, fine, warp. Okay, so, couple of things here. Number one, I just love the fact that in order to warp, Augur apparently has to actually say the word warp. It's just one of those anime badass moments that I like, you know? It's just like, all right, I'm on my way. Warp. And you just warp, okay? I want this teleportation fruit so bad, okay? And it's funny just for Augur, because Augur is just like, warp. And then he warps. Also the fact that Blackbeard was able to take damage from this. Now, couple of things with that too. So Blackbeard is always a character that whenever he gets hit, he always like expresses a lot of pain because he feels pain more than an average person because of the Yami Yami no Mi. Like that is a side effect that he did state. Now, that just because he feels pain a lot and he's always like, oh, that hurts so much, that doesn't mean he's weak or that he has like a weak constitution, because he doesn't. In fact, Blackbeard has a really high constitution and endurance and like defense and stuff. It's just that the pain aspect is increased. Okay? So this attack is in normal attacks. Like if Blackbeard got shot by a normal bullet, no hockey or anything, but if he just got shot by a normal bullet, like it grazed him in the arm, you know, a normal character like Zoro, if Zoro took a bullet in the arm, Zoro would just be like, ugh, ugh. You're gonna pay for that, you know, like something like that. That would be like a cool line Zoro would say. If it happened to Blackbeard, he would be like, ah, duh! Oh, you're gonna pay for that. Oh, that's smart. Doesn't mean he's like in danger of dying of like blood loss or anything. It's just it hurts him a lot more. Now, that's a normal technique. This is an awakening move where the whole premise is that you get stabbed and then the attack, the shockwave from Shock Willie, comes from inside. That's how Law was able to bypass Big Mom's iron skin. That's the whole point, okay? Because, you know, it was hard to damage Big Mom externally, so they dealt damage internally outward, okay? So I would say in this case, even if Blackbeard does have a really strong endurance and he is really tough under normal circumstances, this is probably the most physical damage that he's taken for a long time now. Like, I'm sure back when, you know, Blackbeard got attacked by Sengoku and Garp, maybe he took some actual damage from them. But, like, you know, normally when he just gets hit, it's like it hurts a lot, but he could just stand right back up afterwards, you know? Even when he fought Ace, you know, Ace impaled him with fire spears, and after they put the fire out, he's like, oh, okay. So it hurts, but he can get back up if he just, like, works through the pain, all right? No pain, no gain, Blackbeard. But this is an internal attack, so this might actually have dealt some serious damage to him, okay? So, you know, Blackbeard's spitting up blood, Augur rescues him, and they just warp back down to the battlefield. Okay, so now Blackbeard is, like, standing, like, boom! Like, he just lands right next to Law, and Law is staring him down. He just has his sword out, and this is the point in the chapter where he's like, so, do all of your officers in your crew actually have Devil Fruit powers? Now, Blackbeard doesn't actually confirm or deny this. He doesn't actually say that, like, Zehaha, hell yeah, they all do. He doesn't say anything like that, but it's implied that they do. In fact, I think the only members that do not have a confirmed Devil Fruit yet are Avalo Pizarro and Vasco Shot. They still probably do, it's just we haven't seen their powers yet, but literally everybody else does at this point, okay? So I imagine they would as well. Although, I mean, like, if Aokiji is really the 10th Titanic captain, he has a Devil Fruit power as well. I was gonna say, though, if I was Blackbeard in this situation, I would probably at least maybe keep one of the 10 Titanic captains without a Devil Fruit. I kind of want to see Vasco get one, so maybe Avalo Pizarro just doesn't have a Devil Fruit. Maybe that somebody has to, like, you know, rescue them when they get knocked over the board of the Saber of Zebek or whatever. Although, I guess they could just have, like, regular, like, subordinates for that, you know what I mean? Like, you have a bunch of people on your crew whose sole job it is to just dive into the water and rescue the captains if they ever fall in, you know? I guess that's your one job on Blackbeard's crew, okay. Anyway, Blackbeard responds with it by just saying that, like, say ha ha ha, you know, that's why they call them Devil Fruits, Law. The power is worth the drawback, okay? So, you know, Blackbeard seems to be just diving in head first into this. He's well aware of what the weakness of Devil Fruits are. I mean, like, all of the 10 Titanic captains are, for that matter. It's like, nobody understands, like, oh, I'm gonna eat a Devil Fruit and I have no weaknesses. Like, everybody understands the weakness to water, but, like, the power is just worth it, okay? And in the case with, like, certain Devil Fruits, like Aokiji's, where he could just freeze the water, or Augur, where he could just teleport away, they probably don't have to worry about falling into the water very much. I mean, yeah, if Augur ever got knocked unconscious and then fell into the water, that is certainly a risk, but under normal circumstances, he can move really fast and he can teleport now. So I think Augur is, like, okay with not being able to swim, all right? And then Burgess is just a beefy dude. In fact, we don't even see Burgess in this chapter. What was Burgess up to? Last time he chucked a mountain, and then what after that? He just went to go get, like, he went to a bathroom break or something. He's like, yeah, oh, I have to go pee now. All right, I'll be right back, and then I'm gonna kick all your asses. It's just like, maybe? I don't know. All right, so, the battle continues. Off screen. We also see a giant explosion occur. Is that an explosion that happens on the ship? Or no, it's like in front of the ship, okay? And we even see Sachi and Penguin are down there, maybe like bombarding the ship from below, and then maybe the crew is also like returning fire, trying to shoot down Sachi and Penguin in the water. The Polar Tang is down there too, running evasive maneuvers and everything like that. And, you know, then we cut inside of the flagship, though. We cut into the Brig. We cut into the Brig of the Saber of Zebek. And this is where Pudding is being captive. Okay, so she's inside of a prison cell right now, and there's like 2 random members of Blackbeard's crew that are just regular people. They're not like captains or anything, and they're just there, and they're like prison guards, essentially. And so the ship is like rocking because of all the explosions and shit going on outside, all the quakes and everything. And so the members of the Blackbeard crew are looking inside the cell at Pudding, and they're just like, oh, well, all right, they seem to be able to fight back a little bit, the Heart Pirates, but, you know, it doesn't matter. Our Captain Blackbeard, he'll take them all down eventually. He's an Admiral Commodore Yonko. They're all gonna go down. And then we cut to Pudding inside of the jail cell, and Pudding just says, now, there's a few different translations I saw of this in the past few days, okay? But one of them was basically her confirming that Big Mom was dead. Basically what she said was like, you know, if Big Mom was still alive, you wouldn't be saying that kind of stuff right now. You know, she would, you know, make you pay. In this translation, it's, if Big Mom is still alive, if she's still alive, you know, you're gonna be sorry later, okay? So that's like the idea, okay? I don't think it's confirmed one way or the other that Big Mom is like straight up dead, okay? There's also a way you can look at it, like if Pudding really has awakened her third eye, we don't know all of the abilities that gives you. She might be able to have like clairvoyance abilities and she can see around her, like, oh, she saw Big Mom, so now she can sense if Big Mom is alive or dead. I mean, it might be something like that, but the way that this translation is wording it, which may or may not be more faithful to the original, I guess we'll see what the Viz says when the official comes out, but it's like the idea that's like, hey, Big Mom is not confirmed to be dead or alive yet. It's just like, if Big Mom was still here, if she was around, you wouldn't be saying that stuff to me. So yeah, Pudding is captured, but she seems to be in high spirits. She doesn't seem to be like afraid or intimidated by Blackbeard's crew. She's just kind of there and just like, yeah, whatever. She's also wearing the same outfit I think she was first introduced in way back at Fishman Island. Remember when we got first introduced to Big Mom, and we also saw Nitro the Jelly and Rabian the Carpet, and we also saw Pudding there off to the side. I think it's like the same outfit there. But yeah, we get the title card for her, member of the Big Mom Pirates. It was revealed that she was a member of the pirate crew itself. She's one of the officers, actually, and that's Charlotte Pudding. All right, so that's all we get from her in this chapter. The other members of Blackbeard's crew were just like, you know, that's what has to happen. The old legends have to get torn down for the new ones to go back up. This is Blackbeard's era, you know, so they're all talking about the captain. They love, you know, Blackbeard and everything, so Pudding is just kind of remaining chill for right now. I don't know if she thinks that, like, someone's gonna come rescue her, like her family is gonna save her. Maybe she's holding out hope that maybe Sanji will break in and save her. I don't know. She seems pretty chill, though. She doesn't seem afraid of, like, whatever Blackbeard's, you know, got in store for her, okay? So stay strong, Pudding. Now we cut back to the fight, very briefly, where we have a scene where Law is now using K-Room to extend his sword, and Blackbeard takes the Gura no Mi Quake Bubble, and he just punches the sword. So Law's going to stab him, and then Blackbeard, like, blocks the attack, so we see this Quake Bubble reaching out, like, clashing with Law's K-Room sword, the Kikoku, and just like, Zay ha ha! You know, it's like there, and then he opens up his other hand and he activates Black Vortex, and then that's the end of the battle in this chapter. It'll continue, we just don't know what's gonna happen next with it, okay? So we have Law there, though. He's looking very serious. This is probably one of the most serious moments Law's ever been in, where he's in a, you know, there's nobody to really, I mean, yeah, he has his own crew, but Law is aware that his own crew is not gonna be able to, like, take down Blackbeard, all right? It is one-on-one right now. There is nobody else on the level of Law that's gonna be able to help him and come to his rescue, okay? Luffy's not gonna show up and fight alongside him. Kid's not gonna be there. No one else is gonna be there, okay? Wolf is not gonna show up out of nowhere with some futuristic, you know, minigun and like, hey, Law, it's been a while. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anybody know who Wolf is? That was a reference to the Law light novel, so I would go and check that out maybe. But that's my point. Law's on his own here. His crew is handling everything else, but he has to handle Blackbeard, all right? So he, like, looks up and he's like, what's he planning? And then Blackbeard's like, Black Vortex! So the plan here is, of course, going to use Black Vortex, you know, Blackbeard's standard, like, capture move, draw Law into him, grab him, negate the powers of the Op-Op fruit, and then maybe to, like just punch him in the face with a Quake Bubble really hard. I mean, that's I guess, the basic idea here. Yeah, so, oh, by the way, I just realized, interesting dichotomy that he's able to use the fruit that negates devil fruit powers with a devil fruit, like with two devil fruits. Like the powers of the Gura no Mi are not negated by the powers of the Yami no Mi. He can use both simultaneously, which is very scary. So yeah, that's the end of that battle. Now we have a very brief interlude, because we're going to cut back to Egghead here in a second, but we have a brief interlude to Marine Headquarters, which used to be G1, and we have Akainu there, and Akainu is the Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, and he's listening to a report, and the report is the Marines saying that, like, Blackbeard and Trafalgar Law, they're clashing on Winter Island! And then you have Sakazuki there, just like, ah, damn it! We're forced to wait again. Ugh, being Fleet Admiral is so frustrating. So, Winter Island, I guess, is the name of the island, kind of apropos for that being the island that they're fighting on. You know, the island of winners, Winter Island! And by the way, it didn't seem to be like, it didn't look like there was a town on this island or anything. It just seemed to be an island in the middle of the New World. Maybe there was a battle on there a long time ago. Maybe this is the battle, maybe this is the place where Shanks fought Mihawk. And it's like, Winter Island! And the winner was Mihawk, who knows? But, yeah, so they're fighting on Winter Island, which is appropriate, given that one of them's gonna win and one of them's gonna lose, I guess. All major anime battles need to take place on Winter Island from now on. By the way, I want to clarify, I'm saying Winter Island, not Winter Island, okay? And then we have Sakazuki there, and he's just like so frustrated because he's the fleet admiral, and that doesn't mean he can't. If he was still an admiral or a vice admiral, he might be able just to hop on a ship and go. But being a fleet admiral, he has more responsibilities. He can't just go. All right, so this is the thing for Sakazuki. I think he's feeling a lot more frustrations with his new job because he probably erroneously assumed that once I become the fleet admiral, I'm in charge of everything. And you know, he was a great admiral, and well, I mean, great, but he was a powerful admiral. Okay, he liked his job. Let's leave it at that. But because he's now like a manager, like he's the store manager of all of the Marines. If the Marines were a Dollar Tree in this instance, okay, he's the store manager. Okay, so no, he would be like the district manager, like the zone manager, or whatever like that. He's not involved in the day-to-day operations, so he can't just hop on a ship and just go. That's not what the job description of the fleet admiral is. So I think he's kind of regretting this now, like, oh man, probably should have just stayed an admiral. Should have let Kizaru be the fleet admiral or something. He's good with paperwork. He's lightning fast, you know? Anyway, so now we cut back over to Egghead, all right? So the last time we left Egghead, Luffy's group were being attacked by the policeman Kuma, who is just a pacifista that has the policeman outfit DLC, essentially. And so he was like, you have stolen food and clothing, bombard lasers, you know? And so they managed to avoid it. Last time we saw Luffy diving in front of Bonney. So Bonney basically activated her devil fruit, changing the ages of all of them. Okay, so Jinbei and Bonney both become like little kids. We actually see Jinbei as like a little kid. And we've actually already seen that Oda drew all of the warlords as kids before, so it's kind of cool that Oda gets to use those designs. He drew like Law as a woman before, and now he got to use that in the last chapter, and he drew all the warlords as kids, so he gets to use that now in the chapter. And then as for though Chopper and Luffy, they turn into really old men. Okay, so Chopper is in his walk points, but he's like all shriveled up, and he's just like, yeah, Bonney, could you please turn me back? And then we have Luffy who's resting. They're like in a scrapyard right now. Like they basically changed their age so the robot would no longer like identify them, like scanning, cannot find target. And then they all managed to get away, and now they're hiding in a junkyard. So here's the thing though. Luffy, it says, Luffy aged 70, one possible future, or a glimpse at one possible future. So Luffy's there on the couch and he's like, oh, Bonney, I appreciate you did that to save us, but like, could you change me back to normal now? Why'd you have to make me so damn old? You know? Now, this is something that Oda has drawn before, the idea of the Straw Hats like older at like different timelines. So this is the one he drew for Luffy. And with every single one of these, he draws the Straw Hat at age 40 and 60 in the future that's good, and then in a future that's bad. And the future that bad is usually like, you know, the Straw Hats are losing hair and they look really old, and they're, you know, king of the pirates, I gave up that dream years ago, you stupid kids. You know, so the way we see Luffy right here, he doesn't look like the image like when he was 60, when he basically looked like Garp. Okay, now granted, you know, this was age 60, this is Luffy age 70, but I don't think like 10 years of difference would really, like, I don't think Garp in like, well no, Garp is over 70 and Garp is still super buff. So this is the Luffy from the bad universe. This is not Luffy like, this is Monkey D. Luffy, Garp mode. Which makes me think, is Oda telling us that the path that Luffy's on right now, everything he's done, like if everything stays the same as it is right now, if Luffy were to continue on this path, this is what he would actually look like. It's the bad future. It's not the good future. Which, I guess you could say it's because Luffy has not found the One Piece yet. Like, Luffy has still not achieved his dream, so if you just age him now, it's basically going to be a future where he's given up his dream or he never achieved his dream, and he's just this, crotchety, angry, cantankerous old man. And just like, well, get off my porch, you stupid pigeons! Ah, pigeons, I tell you what. Back in my day, I fought against a pigeon man, and he was really powerful, but he could also turn into a giant cat. Okay, Grandpa Luffy, let's just get you into the house now. All right! Kaiser Kuoni, all right, what arm I hip? I don't know. Oda might just be having fun with it. It might just be like, I'm gonna draw Luffy as like a shriveled old prune. That should be funny. But I don't know. The idea that he did that, maybe it's just like, hey, maybe Luffy has yet to make a decision, or he has to make a choice at some point that will change the tracks of his future, like track shift or whatever. I don't know. But there's something there. So, Bonney is there, and she's also back in her kid form, and she's just talking about her father. And she's just saying that, like, hey, because Luffy and Chopper and everybody are like, that wasn't really your dad, right? That was just a robot, and we have bad experiences with running into pacifistas, so, it wasn't really your dad. And Bonney is just like, I get it, I do, but, like, it's just, she's very reticent to talk about it. Then Jinbei brings up, because Jinbei, he was a warlord. He knows a little bit more about Kuma than, like, Luffy and Chopper do. So he's just like, Bonney, correct me if I'm wrong on this, and stop me if it's a little bit too extreme, but wasn't Kuma, like, an evil, tyrannical king? Like, Kuma's title was the Tyrant, Bartholomew Kuma. So, Jinbei, this is the story. I'm imagining this is the official story. This is the official story that most One Piece citizens know about, okay? Kuma was a tyrannical, despotic leader, the king of the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue. And his people eventually overthrew him, and he went out sea to become a pirate. The government eventually captured him because of his ties with the Revolutionary Army. And then because of his impressive, like, body structure and his buff, Vegapunk decided to, instead of, like, a death sentence or whatever, commuting the sentence to being modified into a PX-0. Taking away his humanity and everything, and becoming a cyborg and working for the world government by force, okay? That's the official story. Bonney, upon hearing that, she's, like, rummaging around in the scrap pile right now, and she pulls out, like, okay, this is a junkyard, but this is a junkyard on Egghead Island, and we saw of how particular and how high standards of everything that Vegapunk has. So even though it's a junk heap, probably everything in here probably still functions. It just wasn't up to Vegapunk's crazy standards. So Bonney literally picks up a lightsaber. I'm not even kidding. She picks up, it doesn't look exactly like a lightsaber. It looks like one of those toys that you would actually buy at Dollar Tree where you push a button and like a ball spins and lights up or whatever, like you get that at the fair or something. She picks this up, presses the button, freaking lightsaber, straight up lightsaber, which will be, I will use the example of my favorite lightsaber from my favorite Jedi, the most badass Jedi, Mace Windu, played by Samuel L. Jackson. Yes. Okay. So just like, and then, so Bonney explains that, like, okay, that's a lie. My dad was not a bad king. He hated the government. He would never have agreed to go with them. I can understand turning into a cyborg, but like ripping away his humanity, that's a stretch too far, okay? So, it doesn't really clear up everything, but there is one thing I wanted to mention here, and it's, Jinbei mentions when he was eventually caught by the Navy, he has ties to the Revolutionary Army. They came to light. So, I honestly think this story is world government propaganda. The idea, I think, from the world government that they want to spin to the rest of the world, the Revolutionary Army are the bad guys. They're the evil ones. The world government is good, the Revolutionary Army is bad. So maybe they spun this story like, oh yeah, there was this really tyrannical king in the South Blue named Bartholomew Kuma, and he was connected to the Revolutionary Army. And look at all the horrible things that happened with him. So we brought him in and we turned him into a mindless cyborg. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it was something like that, because Kuma definitely has connections to the Revolutionary Army. We saw him working alongside Dragon way back during the Goa Kingdom incident with the Gray Terminal and everything, right? So the whole tyrant image, honestly, from Bonney's recollection, seems to be something that the government fabricated. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe the people of the Sorbet Kingdom would view it differently because Kuma seemed to be a nice guy, but the rest of the world just painted it like, oh yeah, no, Kuma was a horrible king. He was horrible. He treated his subjects awfully, and it was because he was tied to the Revolutionary Army, which is why we had to capture him, and we turned him into a warlord. Yeah, that's what happened, right? So Bonney was very upset by this, and the reason why she's particularly upset with Vegapunk and wants to assassinate him with her lightsaber is because, like, hey, I can get why he would choose to make him a warlord, and they would make clones out of him and turn him into a pacifista and everything, but like removing his own personality and his sense of morality and his dreams and hopes and ambitions and his memories, that's just the same as a death sentence. So I will never forgive Vegapunk for doing that. By the way, I don't think Vegapunk completely removed all that stuff. I think there's like, it's kept on like an SD card somewhere that you could like upload, like oh, hold on a second, Bonney, let me just rummage around my junk drawer. Vegapunk's junk drawer just casually has like, you know, a space station laser beam, you know, remote in it or whatever. It's like, yeah, no, that's why there's a time machine, whatever. Here it is, here's the SD card. It's just like Kuma's memories written on it, and just like, here you go, just plug that into the SD card slot behind his left ear and you'll be good. And it's like, oh, buddy, how are you doing, daughter? You know, like, that's it. Now that's a little bit hyperbolic, but I think it is something like that. Like, it is kept on like a backup unit somewhere, okay? So, let's see here, what happens next? Yeah, Bonney says, like, he was never no stinking tyrant. He was a good guy, you know, and he hated the government. He would never work with them, ever, okay? So this is, like, linking it up. Like, there's some kind of secret mission that Dragon probably sent Kuma on, or Kuma volunteered, or something like that, right? So yeah, when Bonney is so mad, though, she takes her sword and she, like, swings it, and it creates, like, a Getsuga Tensho, like, energy wave in the scrapyard. So that's what I mean. Like, it's a scrapyard, but it's Vegapunk's scrapyard, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, this laser sword is a failure. I wanted it to be yellow laser beams, and instead it's a purple laser beam. It's just throw it in the trash heap. Oh, this giant laser cannon I developed, yeah, it's supposed to fire, 300 laser bursts per second, but it only fires 295. It's a failure. Here are these rocket boots I invented. They're supposed to go Mach 10. They only go Mach 9. Whatever. You know, just like chucking them into like these really valuable pieces of future tech. I want to see Luffy, Jinbei, Chopper, and Bonney get all decked out with this crap, okay? Because if there's a damn lightsaber in the trash heap, I can only imagine what else you're gonna find in there, okay? So, yeah, at that point, Bonney returns to her normal, like, her, like, 20-year-old age, and then she also reverts Luffy and Chopper and Jinbei back to their proper ages. She takes the lightsaber, she, like, twirls it and, like, attaches it to her, like, her waist belt, and then she's just like, okay, let's go do this, you know? Let's see, she also says, now, this is the big part of the chapter, I was waiting to say, I didn't want to skip this part, okay. She mentions that, my dad always used to tell me that he was part of a special race, okay? But so what? You know, him being different doesn't justify for him to be a lab rat, okay? And, you know, I'm sure it doesn't justify killing him or so. So it's the same in Bonney's mind. Like, and it kind of is. Like, removing who you are as a person, all your memories, dreams, aspirations, all of that stuff removed, it's the same as a death sentence. So from Bonney's perspective, her dad is already dead and he's not coming back, okay? So that's why she's out for a vendetta against Vegapunk. And so Luffy and Chopper agree, and then, you know, Luffy's just like, yeah, that's right, let's go beat up Vegapunk, I guess. So Luffy's kind of agreeing with her, and then Chopper's like, you know, what do you mean he was part of a special race? And so we cut away from that, so we don't actually see what happens. The general consensus, and what is probably the case, is that Kuma is actually a Lunarian. And there's a few different ways you can take this. Because, you know, Kuma's skin was always the same as a Lunarian, but he has black hair and he doesn't have wings. Or does he? That's the thing. Because Kuma always wears those really thick, like, jackets with, like, the high collar. In the flashback we just had with Kuma last time, he had, like, a cloak on. So he's always wearing some kind of, like, thing. So it's possible he could still have the black wings of a Lunarian. They're just, like, we never got to see them. They're, like scrunched up on his back or whatever, right? It's also possible that he could have removed them. He could have just dyed his hair black. That could have been an option. So that's one thing. Like, he could be a be a pure Lunarian like King and just like be hiding his physical traits from that. Another way of looking at it is he's not a pure Lunarian, but like maybe Kuma's father or grandfather or one of his ancestors was a Lunarian, and so he has some of the characteristics but not all of them, okay? But he still has Lunarian DNA, which is why the government would be very interested in maybe they came up with this whole story. It's just like, we need King Bartholomew Kuma to come to the government so we can experiment on him because he has Lunarian DNA. How are we going to get him over there? I know, we'll set up this story that he's this evil tyrannical ruler, and then we'll arrest him. Okay, we'll force him, the people of the... Well, that's their thing. See, they say the people rose up against Kuma. Did they, though? Did they, though? Because I don't know. This stinks of, like, Gorosei, you know, CP0 influence or whatever. What if, like, they sent members of the Cypherpole agencies, like Cypherpole, like, 1, 2, 3, and 4, like the low-ranking ones? What if they sent them into the Sorbet Kingdom to infiltrate, so they were dressed up like Sorbet Kingdom citizens, just, like, walking around? Oh my god, Bartholomew Kuma, our king, murdered my friend. And there's like a member, maybe like they kill one of the citizens and hits the ground as the king is walking by. It's like, king, why would you do that? Oh my god, he shot someone else. Shigan, Shigan, Shigan. Oh my god, people are dying everywhere. We have to stage a coup. Everybody go. And then like the Cypherpole kind of infiltrate and kind of rile everybody up, like, and it's sort of like what happened with King Riku Dole III in Doflamingo, like setting him up as the evil guy, you know, when Doflamingo controlled him with the parasite thread. Kind of the same thing there. That might have been the case, so who knows. Yeah, I like to think, though, I'm going along with the idea he might not have been a pure Lunarian, but just having, like, the lineage. It's the same thing that, like, why is Big Mom a human, but she's so much bigger than every other human? It's because I think way back in her ancestry, there was a giant at some point. Same thing why we have other humans that are a lot bigger than, you know, like Whitebeard. Whitebeard was not close to being a giant, but he was a big dude, okay? By, like, our world standards, a really big guy. So maybe, like, you know, Whitebeard's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpappy was a giant or something, and sometimes it skips generations, because Big Mom's parents were not giants, but it might skip generations or whatever, you know, recessive genes or however that works. And so that's where I think, like, a lot of the strange, like, humans in the One Piece were, like Moria as well. I don't know what character was in his backstory, but whatever. Something along those lines. So, yeah, and it also explains why the Seraphim of Kuma that is being returned, you know, returned to sender by CP0 is acting strange. It's because, you know, basically it's already a Lunarian crossed with Lunarian DNA and other technology and advancements and stuff, so maybe that's why the Kuma Seraphim is acting unusual, okay? So, we'll see where this goes from here. We cut to the last few scenes of the chapter where we have the rest of the Straw Hats, and they basically are with the giant robot with Lilith, Vegapunk number 2. And so Lilith orders the robot to fly in the sky. So it picks up the Sunny and just rockets above the top of Egghead. Okay, so you know how Egghead was always shrouded in clouds and mist, and we had that giant egg there, which I always assumed that egg was like some kind of like, that was like Vegapunk's lab. And it turns out that it was. So the robot's going up, and the Straw Hats are like, whoa, how can this big robot fly? And Lilith is like, oh yeah, it's just simple propulsion. Also the anti-grav engines. And it's like, there's anti-gravity engines on this thing? And just like, yeah, so the robot gets flung up. By the way, I think Franky would be interested, but like, it doesn't get more involved than that. It might later on in the arc, though. So, they arrive above the clouds, and we see the egg dome. It's the stratum, and it's like, this is the research station, or the research stratum. The area below is referred to as the pavilion stratum, or the fabrication stratum. So essentially, there's two levels. There's the one level down there where all of the research assistants live. Like, you know, I'm just a history buff, so I've come here to research history. I'm a biology buff, so I've come here to research biology. That's also why all of the different machines down there, like the vending machines and the clothing machines, like, remember back on Baltimore, the lab that Franky blew up in the Nightmare of Baltimore, that was the lab that had all of the stuff that, like, improved your daily life. You know, the kind of stuff that you would see, like, in the Jetsons, you know, like the floor that moves, like the conveyor belt, and like the magic refrigerator, or like the robot maids or whatever. That's where all that stuff is, okay? To improve the research assistants' like everyday lives, okay? But when it comes to like probably like the weaponry and all of the big stuff and things like that, that's in the upper stratum, the research stratum, where the actual laboratory is, like the sterile environment and everything. That's where that is, okay? So the Straw Hats are taken there. They land, around, they mention that they're standing on clouds, and so some of the Straw Hats have not even been to a Sky Island yet. So we see, I love this little mention of like Franky saying like, I've never even been to a Sky Island. So Franky's like bouncing on the clouds like, this is great. So Franky's never been to one. Brooke has never been to one, although Brooke is not with them. Brooke and Zoro opt to stay on the ship because they just don't trust Lilith. They're like, we're just going to stay on the ship here. So keep that in mind. We have Luffy, Chopper, Jinbei, and Bonney and their group below in the fabrication stratum on the surface of Egghead. Then we have Brooke and Zoro that are on the ship. And then we have everybody else. We have Franky, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, and Robin that are walking around with Lilith being taken to Shaka, who's Vegapunk 01 inside of the laboratory. Okay, so that's like the three groups right now we're working with. And then Cypher Pole 0 is yet to arrive on the island, but they'll be there soon, okay? A little bit of a callback that I love, when they mention the Sky Island clouds, like the Sky Island-esque clouds that they're standing on, Lilith brings up that like, yes, I'm glad you noticed. So we basically took, condensed the composition of pyrobrine and also modified the overall like molecular structure of the water and the evaporation in the water vapor to make a cloud. So she goes on this long scientific explanation, and most of the Straw Hats, it probably just flies right over their head. But I love the fact that Lilith mentioned pyrobrine. Pyrobrine. Anybody remembers that? Okay, so that was the explanation that was given on how island clouds exist way back during Sky Island when the Straw Hats asked Pagaya about it. Pagaya is like, oh, well, it's quite simple. You see, there's an element that exists on the blue sea called sea prism stone. And when sea prism stone, I guess, evaporates because it's part of the ocean, or when like the ocean around it evaporates, there's a chemical inside a sea prism stone called pyrobrine. And when it basically evaporates with the water cycle, it condenses in a way that gives go to an island cloud, or like a tangible cloud that you can actually like stand on. Okay, so pyrobrine was stated to be that chemical, and it was never mentioned again. It was mentioned in one chapter way back at Sky Island by Pagaya, who wasn't a very, like, important character, and then that was it, okay? So it gets brought up once again here. Oda remembered this is this is the chemical, the substance that makes island clouds. So it makes sense that they would, like, they figured out a way to, like, take it and, like, modify the structure so they could basically make island clouds whenever they want, okay? I also guess that pyrobrine would be inside of, like, all of the different clouds, like the Milky Dials and everything like that, same basic premise, I guess even Nami might have modified it a little bit, because Nami was able to use the Milky Road at Punk Hazard. She was not originally able to use the Milky Dials on the Blue Sea, but training in Weather Area might have actually allowed her to modify pyrobrine as well. So just pay attention to that, pyrobrine. Okay, so anyway. They're all there. They approach the lab. It's this cool little tube thing with like an escalator they have to rise up on, except Lilith says, well, before you go into the lab, you need to change into your lab attire because it's like a sterile environment. You can't walk in being, wearing your filthy pirate attire or whatever. So they go over and put on these boots, and they're the same boots that like Luffy and Bonney and everybody are wearing. You put on the boots, you pull a leather, they automatically adjust to whatever shoe size you are. I'm 9.5 in case you were curious. And then they put on the boots, and then it changes their outfits the same as Luffy and everybody's does. Usopp's outfit is basically this parka with a bodysuit, and he looks pretty cool. Does he have like a visor on? No, he has sunglasses. He's like cool sunglasses on. Franky's is awesome. He has this giant outfit, but also his hair has turned into a piece of like a clockwork winder. Like, you'd wind like a clock or something, so that works for him. Sanji turned into just the Jinbei attire. He's in the dad outfit. He's in the Hawaiian shirt and shorts combo. They're all wearing the same kind of boots. Nami and Robins are very sexy, of course. I love it with like Nami and Robins that it's just basically like, I wouldn't say it's their underwear, although with Robin, it looks like she's just wearing like a thong that has like overalls attached to it or whatever. I'm assuming it's like maybe like a bathing suit, like a bikini, if that makes it any better. So that's the outfit. Nami likes it anyway. She's like, oh my god, it's so futuristic and cute. And Robin has these awesome like arm gauntlets, like these metal arm gauntlets, and Usopp even says, wow, Robin, you look super tough in those things. And she's like, you think so? And I'm like, Robin, you look tough any day of the week. I'm just saying. Okay, so they're all approaching they're all going in and just commenting on their outfits and everything like that. Nami likes them. Sanji is swooning. Usopp is impressed with Robin's arms. And then you have a moment with Franky just like, don't I look awesome and super? Come on, guys, what do you think? And then Sanji's just there like, you look freaky as usual. Like the thing is with Franky is, he can wear any outfit. Like, it doesn't matter. He can wear the weirdest outfit ever, and it would still fit him perfectly. You know what I mean? He's Franky, after all. So they all get excited, and they begin to walk in. They ride up the escalator into the lab. Last scene of the chapter, we cut to inside of the lab, where we see Vegapunk 1, Logic, or Shaka, the good Vegapunk, as opposed to Lilith, who's the evil Vegapunk. And he's communicating with an individual, and he's just saying that, like, the problem with being a genius is that you can see your own future coming. And then the person on the other end, I guess it's like a Den Mushi or some call that he's on, it's just like, what are you talking about, Vegapunk? It's like, I think I'll be dead soon. And then the other person is like, don't joke about that. And then he's like, I just wanted to let you know about this. Dragon. End of chapter, break next week. Okay. So Vegapunk has connections to Dragon, who is, of course, obviously the leader of the Revolutionary Army. This should come as a surprise to nobody. Everybody kind of expected that. I mean, the fact that Kuma was Revolutionary Army and now working for Vegapunk, he made all the modifications. They were obviously friends or have some connection. Now, when Logic, or Shaka, was talking to Dragon, and he's like, I might be dead soon, was he referring to... Okay, there's a... Is he referring to the main body of Vegapunk dying of old age? Is he referring to the fact that maybe when the main Vegapunk dies, they all die? Or was he referring to the Cypher Pole Zero arriving to assassinate? I'm thinking that was probably what he was referring to, because Vegapunk is smart. He's really smart. He knows what the government is going to do before the government probably even knows, right? So he's just sitting there and he's just like, I'm in too deep, Dragon. I've invented too many crazy things. I know too many secrets. I'm thinking it's going to be any day now that the government says Cypher Pole Zero to, like, you know, cap me and all my satellite bodies off. And so Dragon's like, what are you saying? And then that's the end of the conversation. So I think that's what that refers to. There are so many moving parts with this arc already. Like, it would be enough with just the Straw Hats, with Luffy and Bonney's group, and then Zoro and Brook on the ship, and then now they're like Sanji and Franky's group going into the lab. It would be enough with just that, plus all the Vegapunk bodies, plus the Cypher Pole arriving, plus the Seraphim. But then on top of that, you also have this whole battle with Blackbeard and Law going on. You know what I mean? So there's like, Oda is really switching up the pacing of these arcs, and he has to, just because, and also the cover page is working into it too. So there's so many moving pieces right now. I cannot wait to see where this goes. I don't think we're going to cut back to Blackbeard and Law next chapter, though. I think we're going to cut away for a little while. But every few chapters, we might get an update on that. A couple chapters from now, we might see what Kid's up to, or the other supernovas are doing. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, this was a really long chapter, a lot of stuff to unpack with it. But I appreciate it. Sorry it took me an extra day to get it out. But yeah, we'll talk about the rest of this later. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, signing out.